we have a view coming in from Sakti Siva, but before that we also have Viktor Shvets of Macquarie who joins in to tell us how he is going to approach the market and what the strategy should be here on. Victor, good morning. He joins us on the phone line from Hong Kong. Thanks for joining us. How are you approaching equity markets? The underperformance that we saw from India all of last year, do you think that could sort of reverse this year? What would your top market preferences be?
Well, it's very much depends what's going to happen from a global perspective. And that's when we come down to US dollar, global liquidity flows. If you have a contraction of global liquidity, if you have a volatile shifts in commodity prices, if you have US dollar surging, India doesn't like that sort of a degree of dislocation. India likes a Goldilocks, not too high, not too low, either in terms of commodity prices or US dollar. So it all comes down to a global call that you would make. From our perspective, what we would like to see are countries that are predominantly local rather than global, countries that have inbuilt liquidity, and countries that have relatively low degree of external vulnerability. Now, India pretty much satisfies those requirements right now.
Okay, but morning, Victor. What's your sense of the global risk on and the dollar itself? Are you getting a sense that we are going to see a lot more strength for the dollar? You think, 105, 108 that people were predicting about 3 weeks ago is what we are going to see before this quarter is over?
I don't think anybody has any idea, not a clue. There is far too many commentators and there are far too many experts who are trying to create noise, but nothing much more than that. It all comes down, from my perspective, to what the new administration in the United States is going to do. Because we now have probably the most radical administration in U.S. modern history. You really have to go back to sort of 1920s or part of 19th century to see anything as radical as what we're seeing today. Now, they seem to think that having a trade deficit is a bad thing. They don't seem to realize that trade deficit is basically a difference between saving and investment. They don't seem to realize that the U.S. and U.S. dollar underpins the entire global economy. So if you start deglobalizing, if you start forcing people to return the money back to U.S., if you force people to relocate operations back to the United States, where would people have U.S. dollars in order for global economy to grow? We're effectively living now in a financialized, globalized economy, and U.S. dollar is a bedrock of that. So when people say, oh, I think it's going to be 108, they have not a faintest clue what it's going to be. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to what U.S. administration is going to do, number one. Number two, how other countries will react.
Okay. Victor, good morning. What about the fund flow situation? We have seen, emerging markets attract some money flows back. Especially markets like Brazil and Russia. But we haven't seen too much inflow into Indian market yet. Do you think that will resume now?
Well, because that's your reflation trade. Okay, U.S. is going to spend on the fiscal spending. There's going to be infrastructure investment. The whole world is going to reflate. If that is the case, then what you're doing, you're going to terms of trade countries. And what are the terms of trade countries? That's your Brazil, South Africa, Russia, Indonesia. That's where you want to go. You don't want to go to India when you have this reflationary trade. As soon as reflationary trade recedes, that's where countries like India will do better. So it's not really surprising that the funds flow went into more edgy countries. As I said, it comes down to what U.S. administration is going to do, how other countries are going to react, and will it help or retard global reflation?
Yes, that's true. We will all have to be covering Trump administration's policies, perhaps more than Indian policies, the way things are. Thank you very much, Viktor Shvets, for interpreting the global environment for us.